New York Giants fans, we're talking quarterbacks today. And why? Because it's the most important position on the field, obviously, right? You all know the way that I'm going. I'm going with one of those two dudes at the top. If give me Shador, give me Cam Ward, I'm happy. But I keep hearing a lot of people jiving in on this idea of Matthew Stafford, and I don't understand it. I thought I'd explore that, and I thought I would think about some other things that I've heard people say about the quarterback position because I'm Coach Gene Clemens and I've got a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I'm Coach Gene Clemens, New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure you hit that up, see everything we're doing. Right now, I'm in the middle of a series of articles about under the radar guys that are going to the combine. I expect to be at the combine. You're going to come with me. We're going to not only check out the top guys, because everybody's talking about the top guys, right? You can find all the information on the top guys, but what are some of those under the radar guys, those guys that are going to probably go in day 3, maybe even like late day 2, that you need to know about, because those are the dudes that end up populating the team. How can they help you? What are they looking to accomplish at the combine? Definitely go check it out. The defensive line one is out. The linebacker one is coming. The defensive back one's coming. Then tight ends, and so on and so forth until we get to the combine. So make sure you check that out. Make sure that you come over here to the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button as we try to get to 3,000 subscribers. I know, right? It's a lot. No, it's not. 3,000. That's where we're heading. You want to know how many New York Giants fans there are out there? There's a lot. So in the millions. And so if there's New York Giants fans in the millions, then that means that there's a million fans that should be coming over to the New York Giants on SI and doing this thing that we do over here with a giant issue. Let's get it started. I keep hearing people talk about Matthew Stafford as if Matthew Stafford is still a top 10 quarterback. I heard someone say, and I forget who it was, and I apologize, but someone said adding a top 10 quarterback would instantly add value and credibility to the New York Giants. And I'm not disagreeing, right? I'm not disagreeing. What I'm disagreeing is, who said Matthew Stafford was still a top 10 quarterback? And I know that some people in the comments on my last one accused me of hating on Matthew Stafford. It's not hate. Matthew Stafford was a really talented quarterback who put up great statistics, who didn't understand how to win. Now he's a quarterback with a better understanding of how to win, who still has talent, but is often injured, not 100% all the time. And just because he knows how to win doesn't mean he has what it takes to win, right? So I go through all of that to say, I figured I would do a little exercise, right? I'd look at the quarterbacks. So I just grabbed a pencil, and this was right before I started. I just grabbed a pencil and started jotting down quarterbacks that I would, without a doubt, take before I took Matthew Stafford. The list goes Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, Hurts, Stroud, Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. So then I went back through the list and went, who would I predict that you or other people on the outside might disagree with? And I came with 3 names that I thought people might disagree with, right? I came with Justin Hurt with with Jalen Hurts, with Baker Mayfield, and with Dak Prescott. right? And so I didn't say Stroud, I didn't say Daniels, because I thought they're so young and already this talented, it would be hard to argue against taking them right now over a 37-year-old, often injured Matthew Stafford. But I thought those three would probably get the most pushback. I'll start with the guy who's probably the most controversial because there's no reason for him to not be on everybody's top five. Yet I don't think he's on anyone's top five outside of maybe me and some people I know. So I'll start with the other guys. I said Dak Prescott, and I think most people would say Dak Prescott just because there's a hate on Dak Prescott, a belief that he doesn't know how to win, that he doesn't win when it matters in the playoffs. Need I remind you that neither did Matthew Stafford for a very long time. Matthew Stafford was not 31 when he got traded to the Rams. He was older. He's only been with the Rams for a few years, ladies and gentlemen. 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, which means that he was 33 years old and had still had zero production in the postseason. At least we've seen Dak make it to the postseason. He hasn't been able to be successful in the postseason, but we've seen him make it. You can't argue his abilities, his statistics, because over the times when he's healthy and Matthew Stafford is healthy, he's outplayed Matthew Stafford just statistically. So I think that one, a 31-year-old Dak Prescott versus a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford, I think Dak Prescott wins that argument. The other one is Baker Mayfield, which again, I think some people look at the lean years of Baker Mayfield, and I am not a Baker Mayfield fan. Let me just put that out there right now. I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan. He is not my brand. I don't like the way he carries himself. I think a lot of his stuff is performative, but whatever. We're just talking about the quarterback position, and it's hard to argue, right? It's hard to argue against Baker Mayfield because it's not like Baker Mayfield has been out here with like skill position guys, that Matthew Stafford doesn't have. I think if you went skill for skill, Bucks and the Rams, I think you would say, oh, very similar. Very similar, right? Except Baker Mayfield is playing better. Why? He's 29 years old. He's in the prime of his career right now. He is in the start of the prime, right? If you want to say someone's prime is usually 4 years, right? 3 to 4 years. We'll say 4 years. From 29 to 33 for a quarterback, those are prime years. See Matthew Stafford when he first got to the Rams, he was still at prime level. But some quarterbacks prime, they fall off extremely quick. So they don't make it to that 4 years. This is Baker Mayfield's right on the front end of it. These are his years. Yeah, no. He's definitely going over what Matthew Stafford has been able to do. Right? He's definitely going over what Matthew Stafford has been able to do. And then the last one is Jalen Hurts. And with Jalen Hurts, everybody talks about his numbers because the numbers matter for him. The wins don't matter for him. Like with everybody else, it's wins, then the numbers. With Jalen Hurts and with Lamar Jackson, it seems to be that the wins don't matter as much as the stats. Except now this year, when Lamar Jackson got the stats, they dropped back to the wins or the lack of a championship. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you can't have it both ways out there. You can't say hey, championships matter for these quarterbacks. And then when a quarterback wins a championship, go, yeah, but not for him. And that's what people have been doing to Jalen Hurts. I promise you, there's not a lot of quarterbacks on this list that are winning a championship with Philadelphia. We just act as if Philadelphia is perfect. Like, maybe not Giants fans, but like people in the media, people around the nation, they act as if Philadelphia is perfect, but they're not. They're not perfect. And Jalen Hurts is the perfect remedy for what they do. Never mind the fact that Jalen Hurts has had success and he has had a different offensive coordinator every year since he entered college. Nobody does that. If anybody that follows me, they know that one of my keys to success for a quarterback is consistency, right? Either consistency at the head coach or consistency with the coordinator in the system. Jalen Hurts hasn't had that. So, no, I'm not taking Matthew Stafford, 37-year-old Matthew Stafford, over a 26-year-old Jalen Hurts coming off of a Super Bowl where he was the MVP. Not because they felt bad for him, not because it goes to the quarterback, because without Jalen Hurts, hey, I get it. The defense scored a touchdown. They don't win the game. So that's why I'm not putting Stafford above any of these guys. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dudes. That's 11 dudes that I have right now. Here's where it gets fun, because I didn't stop the list there. That's the list of the guys that I said I would automatically take over him. Now let's get sexy. Are you taking Brock Purdy, a 25-year-old Brock Purdy, over Matthew Stafford? Everybody says that Brock Purdy is super good, right? So if Brock Purdy is super good and all of his weapons got hurt this year, his running back, all of his wide receivers, his tight end was out for a little bit, and he still had better statistics than Matthew Stafford, couldn't the argument be made that I'm going to be better off with a 25-year-old Brock Purdy than I am with a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford? Kyler Murray. Am I taking Kyler Murray over Matthew Stafford? Am I quantifying in the fact that he's going to give me more rushing upside, right? Be able to pick up more first downs, keep the chains moving for my team than Matthew Stafford is going to be. Oh, he's 27 years old. You know what that means? He's about to run into the prime. He's about to run into the prime. Am I taking him over Matthew Stafford? If you're keeping count at home, right? Because I am. If you're keeping count at home, that is 13 quarterbacks that I'm willing to take over Matthew Stafford. What about Jordan Love? Am I taking a 26-year-old Jordan Love who put up more touchdowns, right? Put up more touchdowns than Matthew Stafford did. He played in 15 games, but we all know in like 5 of those games at least, he was hampered, right? He wasn't what he should be. He wasn't to the level that people thought he would be because he was injured. Oh, he doesn't have a Puka Nacua. He doesn't have wide receivers who everybody would be adoring for, and yet still he's 26 years old. Am I taking Stafford over Love? No. Am I taking Stafford over Tua? A Tua Tagovailoa who only played in 11 games this year because he was concussed. right? He was concussed. He came back. They got a little conservative. He's been often injured and most of the time is concussed. Am I taking a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford over a 26-year-old Tua in his current state? That's a coin flip for me, right? If I'm just talking about next year, and that's all we're doing. All we're doing is talk about next year. We know that Tua knows how to get the ball to the playmakers. We've seen it. But that's not it, right? That's not where it ends. That's not where we stop at. Because I kept on doing the list. Like I kept on going down the list of players at quarterback to see exactly where the hard line was where I wasn't going to take a guy. I started going to the younger dudes, right? Are you taking them over a 25-year-old, a 25-year-old Sunshine? Are you trying to take them over a 25-year-old Trevor Lawrence? How about a 23-year-old Bryce Young? A 22-year-old Anthony Richardson? Just for next year, right? The answer might be yes, but you'd have to think about it. Why? Because those young dudes get an opportunity to grow. They get an opportunity to grow, to get better. How about this? Are you taking them over Caleb Williams, over Bo Nix, over Drake May, over Michael Penix? Are you taking them over any of those guys? Even if the answer is yes, you got to stop and think about it, right? Because what's going to be their progression as they go into the next year? When I stop to think about it, of the top 25 quarterbacks, right? Of the top 25 quarterbacks there are in the league right now, there's not many of them that I'm taking Matthew Stafford over. It's not a diss at Matthew Stafford. It is understanding that Matthew Stafford is 37 years old, that he's not as good as he was. I'm not trying to just be respected or respectable in 2025. I disagree with all of the people out there who say the New York Giants is a dumpster fire. They've got to lose for another 2 to 3 years. Hey, guess what? Those 5 and 6 games that were lost by a touchdown, you know what happens with good quarterback play? It changes. That good quarterback play could be Matthew Stafford, right? But I also am not just looking to be good next year. I don't just want to be good for 1 year. I don't want to be decent for 1 year. I want to take the steps that are going to lead my team back to a Super Bowl. Everybody keeps talking about Joe Shane and Brian Dable having to hit the panic button in order to win games this year. That's not Matthew Stafford. Why? Because Matthew Stafford, more than likely, right, more than any other quarterback that's not 37, is one hit away from being out. One hit away from you having to go, now what do we do? Because I believe if you get Matthew Stafford and you're going to pay the price of Matthew Stafford, then your first round pick can't be a quarterback. In fact, none of your picks can be a quarterback. You are in win now mode, and not just win to be respectable, win to get to the playoffs and set yourself up in a situation so that when that one quarterback leaves, you have another quarterback that you can plug and play, like Tampa Bay was able to do with Baker Mayfield. If you can't plug and play the next future of your franchise at quarterback without taking the steps back, then you have failed. So bringing in a Matthew Stafford, right? Bringing in a guy who is going to demand, that he get the ball. You know what I'm saying? He get the ball, he lead the team, he be the man, he be paid like the man. You don't have time to rebuild a team while also paying exorbitant amounts of money for 37-year-old quarterbacks. It just doesn't make any sense. I also was on the internet listening to some clips from some podcasts, and this came from the Big Blue Kickoff. And shout out to everybody over at the Big Blue Kickoff and our guy Paul Dottino of the Big Blue Breakdown was on the show, and they were talking about quarterback success. They were discussing quarterback success and what leads to success for a team. And I wanted you to hear it, and then I wanted to comment because, yeah, but they missed some things. At least in my opinion, they missed some things. So here is, the Big Blue Kickoff with Paul Dottino on it, talking about quarterback success.
You can get to a Super Bowl and win at the highest level with a quarterback drafted early or a quarterback drafted late in the draft. But you have a much better chance of getting there and having sustained success by picking a quarterback early in a draft. Just as an example, 30% of the quarterbacks selected in the first round since 2000 have made a conference championship game. Just 9% of quarterbacks picked in rounds 2 or 3. Paul, the earlier you pick a guy, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, the better chance you have of having sustained high-level success.
Definitely understand the percentages, John. I think in context, you have to always look at where you are, and you have to look at what's available in that particular year. And that can sometimes alter your perception as to how high or how needy you have to be to go get one.
And that doesn't mean you don't draft quarterbacks in round 2 or 3. We've had success in those rounds too. Jalen Hurts just won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Russell Wilson, long-term success. Go back to Drew Brees if you want to go back in the day. So you do have quarterbacks in that second and third round area that have had success, just a much lesser chance of that success. So take shots, draft players, maybe not count them on them as much as you would as a guy drafted in the top 10.
Once again, shout out to the Big Blue Kickoff. Make sure that you go and patronize them everywhere you can. This is not a shot at anybody on the Big Blue Kickoff. It's not a shot at Paul Dottino, and I hope no one takes it that way. But to say that 30% of quarterbacks that are taken in the first round have more success, find success than in the second and third round, where it's only 9%, is, as Paul Dottino talked about, is not talking about the context, but not the context that he was referring to, which is, and I'm putting words in his mouth, so maybe this isn't what he meant, but what it sounded like to me that Paul was saying was, hey, this, like, what we have right now is a situation where you have to think about taking these quarterbacks high because we may not have as high a grade on these quarterbacks as maybe some of the quarterbacks taken in the first round before, right? I'm putting words in. I'm extrapolating what he was trying to say by saying you have to look at the context, right? But here's why I disagree with that, not with Paul necessarily, but what the premise is. When you take somebody in the first round, you are married to that quarterback. That quarterback holds a percentage of your cap space. That quarterback holds guarantees on their money. That quarterback has been looked at as from your fan base as a guy who needs an opportunity to be able to prove it. That's 1, 2, 3 years at least, right? The guy in the second round may not even get the opportunity to be the starter. The guy in the third round may not actually get the opportunity to be the starter. The guy in the second and third round might get the starting job, but you're not beholden to him. You know what they did to Jalen Hurts every single year once he got the job? Once Jalen Hurts got the job, every single year, they did a mock draft mocking a quarterback to the Philadelphia Eagles. You know when it stopped? It stopped when he signed his massive contract extension. So for the first 3 seasons of Jalen Hurts' career, every single year, people mock draft a quarterback to Philadelphia. Why? Because he's just a second round pick. What do you think happened? What do you think happened in Seattle that made it possible for Russell Wilson to have success? He got the opportunity. He went to a team who had brought in a quarterback in free agency. That quarterback got hurt. Russell Wilson in preseason, Russell Wilson came in, balled out, and they said, yo, let's give Russell Wilson that opportunity. He didn't mention Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, not a first-round draft pick. Why did he become successful? Because the starter, a guy who was like an undrafted free agent, by the way, he got injured. That allowed Dak Prescott to be thrust into performance. He performed so well that they said, hey, we're not going back. That's how well he performed. Yo, we're not going back. We're not going back to whatever it is we were doing beforehand. Sorry, go do some work in the booth. So on and so forth. Tom Brady, how did he get the chance? Someone got injured. Heck, Sam Darnold, how did he get a chance? Someone got injured. So it's not that these guys can't be successful at playing. It's just that if the incumbent does not get injured and or open the door by their play, which is what happened in Philadelphia, right? If they don't get injured, if they don't open the door based off of their poor play, the only reason Jalen Hurts gets on the field, right, is because Carson Wentz was not doing the job at the level needed in order to be successful. That's it. If Carson Wentz performs at a decent level, Jalen Hurts never gets an opportunity to start. He never gets an opportunity to prove that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's how it happens. Drew Brees walked in, was able to get some tick. They said, hey, he's a second round pick or third round pick. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. He's not a first round pick. He's short. He doesn't have the strongest arm. We're going to look for another quarterback in the draft. Not because he wasn't performing well, but because they thought that they could get a better talent than him. That's it. Tyrod Taylor had to wait years to get an opportunity. Why? Because he went to a team where he was not going to get an opportunity to play. Then he went to Buffalo, who was in need of a quarterback. Buffalo, he gave him an equal opportunity to win the job. He won the job. Then they said, oh, he's just a mid-round pick. We can find better. They went out and tried to sabotage the season to get Josh Allen. They did just that. They shipped off Tyrod Taylor, and Tyrod Taylor has been a journeyman ever since. You want to know why? Because anytime you're a second round pick or a third round pick or a mid-round pick, everywhere you go, that is what's attached to your resume. That is what you are in the eyes of the decision makers, which means they always think they can get better than you. Why do you think Tyrod Taylor wasn't back with the Giants? Why? Because the Giants believed they could get just as good and or better than him for cheaper. That's really what it is. So I don't agree with the, oh, you're going to have better luck with the first round. I think you're going to have luck if you dedicate yourself to whomever that quarterback is. Hey, in Tennessee, they tried to give a quarterback a chance. They gave him all the chances in the world. They might still be giving him a chance, right? He just wasn't good enough. Meanwhile, the guy that they took before him, they gave little to very no chance. Little to no chance. He walked over to Green Bay as a backup, stepped in for the quarterback, and won games. Why? Because when a team gives you a legitimate chance, now we can make a legitimate observation on whether you can play. We couldn't do that. We couldn't do that in Tennessee. Why? Because Malik Willis was treated like he couldn't throw the ball, like he didn't bring any positive qualities to the table. They treat him like he might be a gadget dude. And that's what happens. Meanwhile, they bring in the next guy, Will Levis, and they treat Will Levis like he could be a franchise quarterback. They give him every opportunity to mess up, every opportunity to not do well. But he's still not a first round. So guess what they're doing right now? They're looking at a replacement at quarterback. Why? Because Will Levis ain't it. And when Will Levis goes on to his next team, you know what they're going to say? Yeah, but he's not a first round talent. Anytime guys don't go in the first round, you know what people who don't really look into the why say? Oh, well, he must not have been good. The NFL didn't take him in the first round. I think it's laughable that they use Lamar Jackson in this model, because Lamar Jackson, the only reason he goes in the first round is because Baltimore traded back into the first round to get him. If they don't trade back into the first round, we're talking about Lamar Jackson as a second round pick. All of the teams that passed on Lamar Jackson, including Baltimore, all of them, they all had a chance. They didn't take it until Baltimore got back in. So this idea that you only have to take a quarterback in the first round is foolhardy. The truth is, you got to take a quarterback that you believe in, and then you have to give them a legitimate chance. So here's what I'll say, Giants fans. If the Giants believe in somebody other than Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, I don't want to hear about, hey, go get a bridge guy to let this dude sit on the bench for a couple years. No. If you believe in him, get him out on the field, find out what you have. Because he's a second round pick, you can figure it out, and it's not going to hurt you if you have to go back to the well in 2 to 3 years. Don't forget, Carolina took Jimmy Clausen in the second round. Jimmy Clausen stunk the joint up, and the very next year, they drafted Cam Newton. So this idea that, you're going to have more success finding him in the first round if you take him in the first round, no. It just means you're going to dedicate yourself to him longer if you take him in the first round. That's very different, and that's where context and understanding more about like the game and how the game goes will help you better understand why some people have success and others don't. That's why you don't give up on an Evan Neal after 3 years when he's 23 years old. That's why you don't give up on a Kayvon Thibodeau after 3 years where he's shown success and he's 23 years old. Why? Because that's why you take them in the first round, so that you can get a 5-year observance of how they grow. Ta-da! Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have today. New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all your New York Giants news and information from. Make sure you go and check that out. Shout out to PT, all the great people over there at the New York Giants on SI. Make sure you check out all the articles I've got coming. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button at the New York Giants on SI YouTube page. Check it out. It's going to be a great It's going to be a great next few weeks as we start getting an opportunity to hit on some of these things. I just hope people are ready for the curveball that is likely to come at some point. We don't know what it is. We think it might be Matthew Stafford, but what if it's not? I'm Coach Gene Clemens, and I have a giant issue.